Hello. Good morning to all of you, and I pray that we have a good time this morning talking about our thyroid issues. Now, I'm going to be sharing my experience with the thyroid issues that you can see what God did with me and what learning and experiencing has done and help me to regain my health. And I pray that it will be helpful to you as you work through your issues. First of all, I am not a doctor. I'm just a studying lay person, striving to keep my good health. And, we all lose it or deteriorate, and we want to be the best we can be. I do not prescribe what you need to do. I'm only sharing my thoughts and my experience for you to consider. Hopefully, I can save you for some detours, trips in striving for good health, regaining your health. First of all, I want to begin by gaining a basic understanding of the endocrine system. This is the Anatomy and Physiology book. It is very thick, very detailed, and has a lot of information for us to learn how fearfully and wonderfully made that we are under God. God is our creator. He understands us better than we understand ourselves. But I want to go through some basic understandings for you so you can evaluate from cause to effect to regain your health. Perhaps you're having some thyroid issues and that's why you're interested in this right now. Well, basically, the endocrine system is the system that we're working with right now, and it consists of three glands. The three glands that make up the endocrine system are the adrenal glands. You'll find them when you put your hands on your hips like this. Your thumbs are just about where they are, just above your kidneys. And you have a pair of glands that are very effective. Adrenal glands, very important. They're the foundation of the endocrine system. And then there's your hormones, your gonads. That creates all your hormones and runs your fertility, but it also does a lot more than that. And then there's the thyroid gland. So three pairs of glands in your body run your whole system. Many make this system out to be very complicated, actually mysterious. They like to make it just mysterious, so you're dependent upon them. But is their reasoning accurate? Is it follow God's plan? Does it really understand, or is it just a man's idea? The endocrine system is one that you can understand and the basics. And with that, you can reason from cause to effect on why do I have these symptoms and what organ is it that's causing the issue and how can I fix it? The endocrine is basically a three-legged stool. How can I display that? If you have a three-legged stool, and it's pretty stable if you've ever sat on a three-legged stool. And now it would be better if it would be a four-legged stool, but it's a three-legged stool and it's very stable. They're interdependent upon each other. And so when one gets stressed, the other is there to help and to support it temporarily. Let's look at how they work together and how one affects the other. Very simply speaking, okay? Basic physiology of the adrenals. You can go to a book like this and you can really tax your brain to learn all the details that it puts in there. But I'm going to give you an overview. The adrenals produce a myriad of hormones, many hormones. The hormones are merely messengers that regulate many things in your body, and that's the adrenal's job. For example, if you know anything about heart issues, there's the sodium-potassium pump. And that pump is very important for getting minerals into and out of each individual cell. But they're also, in the big picture, the sodium-potassium pump is what keeps your heart running regular. So your heart system is very much dependent upon the adrenals working and functioning well. The adrenals also produce adrenaline. Perhaps you've heard of adrenaline or you've heard of cortisol. It's the fight or flight hormone, which we really need when we get into real trouble or life-threatening situations. The adrenals also regulate your blood pressure, whether it's high or low. There are other factors, but adrenal is one of those factors. Your pulse, maybe your pulse you tend to be a slow pulse person because you're athletically quite active in life. Or maybe you're a very fast-paced pulse person, and that is all regulated predominantly by your adrenals. When you get up, when you're laying down and you stand up, it's the adrenals that send the messengers through hormones to up that blood pressure so you don't get lightheaded or dizzy. If when you go from a laying down position and you go to a stand up position, you get dizzy or lightheaded, that's indicative that your adrenals are fatigued or could be indicative of exhaustion in your adrenals. So it's important to know that. The adrenals also regulate the glucocorticoids. It's not as complicated as that word sounds. It's merely basically regulating your blood sugar levels, high, low, stability, availability of your blood sugars. Your adrenals play a part in all of that. The adrenals' main function is overall homeostasis of your entire body. And it sends out all these little messengers just instantaneously when you need them. The adrenals is a backup system when your hormones aren't being produced properly, because the thyroid can produce a small amount of hormones to help in an interim until you regain your health. But it's not intended to be a supplement or replace it entirely. There are certain blood tests that you can take that will tell you the normalcy and the health of your adrenals, and that is ACTH. You can ask your doctor to have that blood test to see how your adrenals are functioning. That's important to know. Secondly, we're going to look at the physiology of our hormones. Now, officially it's called the gonads, and there's several gonads in there in your pelvis, and they produce through the follicles that are a part of that system. The follicles actually create and make your estrogen, 3 estrogens, or progesterone, the balancer of your estrogens, and testosterone. The hormones are very important, not only for making babies, but for keeping your body healthy overall. It's necessary for, well, you can see how important homeostasis is, right? And so it's very important for more than just your fertility. The follicles actually create the 3 estrogens, the progesterone and testosterone. Let's see what they do. The estrogen increases circulation. When it's dominant in the female cycle, then it causes the bleeding and the shedding of the blood in the female cycle, and it proliferates growth. So that's what estrogen predominantly does. But estrogen is also a building block essential for keeping strong bones and keeping your mood up and blood flowing well. That, if it gets too thick or if it gets too thin, the body has to regulate that. Now, estrogen and progesterone are the hormones that regulate fertility and your monthly cycle. When estrogen is in the dominant phase, that's when the heavy bleeding occurs in your cycle, and it starts shedding it. When the progesterone is dominant and the estrogen is reduced in its production, then that stops the bleeding. But progesterone also hinders the effects of losing a pregnancy. Often in the first trimester, if you lose your fetus, that's often because of not insufficient progesterone being on board to keep the placenta viable and in high production of progesterone in your body. Progesterone has also been named the happy hormone, which creates a balanced mind and body. It's very important. Progesterone, the biggest factor here, especially for thyroid issues, is that progesterone is the precursor for all 60 plus hormones that your thyroid makes. And your progesterone is essential, the basic building block for every one of those thyroid hormones. So progesterone is very indicative of in your thyroid health, productivity. Now, I don't know much about testosterone, so I'm not going to say anything on that. But the blood tests, if you're interested to check and evaluate, used to be 50 years ago, the saliva test was most diagnostic in evaluating your blood tests. But today, blood tests are more accurate because they are not doing the blood test or the saliva test in the way that is more diagnostic. It's less diagnostic today. So I recommend taking blood tests to see where your levels are. The third area of physiology I want to go into briefly for you to understand is your thyroid. Again, the thyroid looks something like this. It's in your neck and it kind of folds on both sides and is a very important organ because it has so many functions, much like the adrenals. It's the body's major metabolic hormone production of the 60 plus various hormones that the thyroid produces to keep homeostasis also in your body. All the hormones created in your thyroid need progesterone, as I've said before, in order to build all their hormones that the thyroid creates. The thyroid is very unique in that it affects every cell in your body. The hormone message tells you to up the sodium potassium pump or lower it. There's too much. There's too much sodium. There's too much potassium, and that creates heart problems. So a little less or a little more of this or that. But the three glands that I want you to see most importantly are interdependent on each other. The thyroid increases your basal metabolic rate. That's your heater in your system. So if you tend to have cold hands, cold feet, cold nose, gets really cold really fast outside, it's because your thyroid isn't working at optimum. The thyroid hormones also affect blood pressure, tissue growth, and it affects your skeletal system, your muscular system, your nervous system, your cardiovascular system, your GI, intestinal system. It affects your digestion. It affects carbohydrate, protein, and fat metabolism. Whoa, and balances all of that. So the hormones in our thyroid is very important. It's helping homeostasis and having a healthy life. It's pretty all-inclusive in the functioning of the body and for the quality of our life. The tests you can take to see if your thyroid is functioning is you need to understand that T3 is your functioning hormone and what is available, how much of this is available for the body to use to bring your minerals into your cells, out of your cells, and take out the waste products and all that. T4 you can measure in a blood test as well, but it only shows the stored thyroid, the inactive thyroid that's there but not available. You see, the thyroid also produces an enzyme to convert T4 to T3 to be readily available and be functioning in the system for what its work is. TSH is a blood test that's the predominant blood test that the doctor will take to see how your thyroid is functioning. Now, I want to go into the labs a little bit as well. The labs, I want you to know, is a bell curve. You know, a bell curve, it goes like this, and then it goes way out with the bell, and then it comes across. Well, the bell curve shows in the outside edge where it swings way out, the high norm and the low norm. That's where disease is the most easily treated when you evaluate your blood tests. Today's medical general concepts aren't very accurate. And so they say that you're normal when you're low functioning norm or when you're high functioning norm. And they say, that's all right, you're within normal limits. This isn't normal limits. This is the average of all the sickies being included in what's normal. We don't want to be considered in the normal of today of degeneration. We want the most effective treatment is when you're in the high norm and you're low norm. Consider cause and effect what's going on and treat early. If you wait and treat later when it's outside of the bell curve of the lab test, then it's much more difficult to treat effectively. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So treat early. Don't wait until it's already got its legs well established in and is a firm foundation of sickness. Hypothyroid disease needs to be treated. Hyperthyroid disease is Graves' disease. And whether you have a low functioning thyroid or a high functioning thyroid, you can have hair loss, which is a common symptom for people when they have thyroid issues that takes them to the doctor. Physiology of the endocrine system is a tremendous trio. Again, they work together, all together in harmony, interdependent, and they help one another when one is stressed. It affects all of them. So remember that three-legged stool? Okay, the three legs on that stool is quite stable. But when you pull off one system that isn't working, whoa, now you've got a balancing, just a two-wheel stool. And it's off balance, right? Yeah, it's off balance. And if two of the systems are in trouble, that leaves one system with all the burden to run all the body. It's too much for one system. So let's look at that. When the hormone system, which is usually the first system that fails or falters or gets weak and isn't producing its maximum or its ultimate, it remains causing problems to the adrenals. It stresses the adrenals and it stresses the thyroid. Why do the hormones stress the thyroid and the adrenals? Because the progesterone that it produces that's so vitally important is not available for the thyroid. So the thyroid can't make its hormones because it doesn't have the supplies necessary to make them. So it stresses the thyroid. And when the thyroid is stressed because the hormones are stressing the thyroid, then that puts a triple burden on the adrenals. The adrenals are the bottom line. It causes a lot of stress. You can see that in brain fog. You can see that in muscle strength losing. You can see it when your cold hands and feet actually gets worse. Yeah, all those things. And so we have to understand that this system of three to understand why we're having problems. The thyroid is stressed when the hormones and causes the one-legged stool with the adrenals, doesn't it? And adrenal exhaustion is just inevitable sooner or later. So see why on the bell curve it's better to treat when it's just high norm or low norm? Oh, yes. How would you like to take care of all the household chores, all the cooking, all the cleaning, all the laundry, and then you're in charge and you have a large yard with the gardens and yard maintenance, and you have all of that too. And then someone comes along and dumps on you running a full-time business that takes all your time. Oh, you'll exhaust too, won't you? Sure you will. So how long would you last? Well, how long will your adrenals last? Well, disease is the result of endocrine dysfunction. You go to the doctor, you take the test, and it shows that you're low normal or high normal, but the doctor zeroes in on your thyroid because your TSH is certainly showing that there's some real stress there. So the doctor puts you on medication. What does that medication do? That medication stimulates your thyroid for higher production. But it doesn't have the tools to make the hormones because their hormones for the thyroid, because the hormone system is really the original cause and effect creating the problems with your thyroid. So when you whip the thyroid, you're going to wear out the thyroid even more and make the disease even worse because it's weak and it doesn't have the materials necessary to do its work. So the stress is going to go predominantly to your adrenals. And eventually your adrenals, with all this extra work, doing the work of 3 systems, is going to wear out. You're going to see fatigue is going to come into your symptomatology. You're going to see exhaustion come in. You're going to see that you just don't have uh, the perseverance to continue. You don't have the override to override anymore. The override doesn't work. Yeah. All right. So when the endocrine system is stressed, you have to know that things are only going to get worse if you treat the thyroid because it's going to stress your adrenals even more. Interesting concept, isn't it? If you don't learn anything else from this message, learn this one thing. You don't treat the thyroid until you get back to at least a 2-legged, fairly stable stool that you can treat the thyroid, that the extra stress that's going to go on to the adrenals predominantly can withstand the treatment. The better way is you want to heal the thyroid. You want to take the stress off it. Get that progesterone in there that the thyroid can start to work properly. And it takes a while before it gets absorbed and starts getting used again. You want to treat the thyroid with proper diet. Minimize your exercise, not to strain your adrenals anymore. You want to get the 8 naturals. What are the 8 naturals? There's an acronym, New Start. Nutrition, exercise, water, temperance. I've got to think of the word. Temperance, A. Air, R. Rest, T. Trusting divine power. Yeah, we need God to help us with this. We need wisdom. He's the creator. He's created us. He's made this endocrine system to function very well. And when it's in a dysfunction, he knows just how to fix it. And you add Christ into, dear Lord, you're the great physician. Help me, heal me. What should I do when you're seeking for wisdom, cooperating to do what's right, what you know is right, to regain your health? God has the hand of healing that will add to your efforts to do what is right. And you will get a greater response to treatment. Then there's also, from my experience, there is standard process. This is a very important thing that helps you heal your thyroid. Now, it seems strange, but this is treating the adrenals, desiccated adrenals. It's from a source of hormones from the cow, not the pig, but the cow. So that's better. It's at least you're using the good meat. And this will help your adrenals heal so that they can be prepared for a thyroid treatment and thyroid healing and respond quickly to your right diet and proper exercise, not too much, but not too little. Iodine is very important for your thyroid, and there are certain foods that are very good for your thyroid, in case you didn't know. Let's see. Kelp, licorice, rosemary. Iodine sources, selenium, fruits, avocados, whole grains, Brazil nuts, brewer's yeast, blueberries, and there's much more. And you've got to look well into your potassium. Do you have enough potassium? Do you have enough sodium? And your blood tests can show you that too. Potassium foods would be bananas, fresh fruits and vegetables, avocados, potatoes, and keep up your fatty acids. So there are things that you can do in the diet. There are things you can do in the herbal line that can help support your thyroid, help support your adrenals ultimately. You need to educate yourself. Educate yourself to know what to ask and what to do. You can treat your thyroid, or not your thyroid, you can treat your adrenals with supplementation such as desiccated adrenals. You can treat your hormones by getting a blood test and going to bioidentical hormones and replace the imbalance. Start slow, start with progesterone. My recommendation, many doctors start with estrogen because you get some of your symptoms lessened, whether it's hot flashes or the cold hands and feet or whatever. But you really need to hold off. There is a treatment for your thyroid, also by standard process. Thyrotropin is what it's called. But first, you want to build up your adrenals and your hormones the best you can to be the best you need to be. Excuse me. What tests can you take to evaluate how your adrenals are doing? ACTH. And you want to do blood tests to see how your progesterone and estrogen are. You have 3 estrogens, but you only need to test estradiol. 1 is sufficient. And check your estrogen, your progesterone, and if you think that there's a need for testosterone, you can test that as well. But remember the bell curve and know that treating the highs and the lows is important for you then, not when it's past disease. You must evaluate your test results yourself. So you need to understand. Maybe you need an anatomy and physiology book. Maybe you would like to study on the internet, but you're going to have to pick and choose. There's a lot of philosophies, and you're going to have to pick and choose which one you believe is the correct one. And God will help you with that. Interview your doctor. When you go to a doctor, you want to find a doctor that works with you that has similar concepts. Maybe you like the general medical field, then fine, go with them and you trust them and see how it goes. There is a functional medicine doctor, which are a little step above the regular physicians because they want a reason from cause to effect and not just put you on medication. So if that's important to you, you want to evaluate the doctor and see what he thinks. And you've got some understanding now, so you can ask them questions. What are you willing to do for your own personal recovery? Whatever you believe, whatever ideas you have in your mind is going to direct your research. But I want you to know that trust in divine power, the New Start acronym, and all that represents is really very important for you. God is the creator and understands the endocrine system, and he's going to give you wisdom. He's going to guide and direct your thinking to, Lord, what would you have me to do? Lord, what's best for me to start with? I don't know. And I don't know enough to evaluate what the doctor tells me. I'll listen to what the doctor says, but I like to go to God with all that I've learned in books and all that man has told me. And I like God to be in the equation to give me true wisdom from on high. We have been deteriorated over 6,000 years of sin destroying our body. And God understands, and he's going to lead you in the right direction. You want to strengthen the adrenals. For strengthening the adrenals, I recommend the book. Oh, wrong book. I recommend the book Adrenal Fatigue by James Wilson. He's wrote this for the lay people, and he's got a lot of good stuff in here. He helps you understand the physiology to reason from cause to effect, what drains your adrenals, what builds your adrenals up. I want you to know that I did all the 8 naturals and good diet, and not until I added the desiccated adrenals did I strive and get back from my functioning at 25% of my capacity or norm to back to 100%. And I hesitated this because I was vegan vegetarian. And so I had to overcome the idea and be convinced that God wanted me to take an animal product. So I don't know what you'll wrestle with, but we all have our own concepts and we're going to have to work within that. But this book, you need to know the general functioning of your adrenals, the cause and effect. in order to go and find the true solution for you. Now in here, he has a lot of good things. I'll show you this one. He shows a lot of things that drain your adrenals and stress your adrenals, and you have to learn about them. And then he goes into giving you lots of really cute pictures to show what is it like when you have adrenal fatigue, when your thyroid has stressed your adrenals to a bad end. And it's very, very cute and very quickly to understand what he said. So he wrote it for lay people. And he's got in here tests to test your adrenal fatigue. And in here he goes into an eye test. You can do a very simple eye test. You can gain information yourself to see how your irises react. He also goes into that postural hypotension, where when you're laying down, you take your blood pressure and you pump your blood pressure cuff up before you get up, and then you get up and you take your blood pressure immediately. Now, if that blood pressure has gone down, that's an indicator that your adrenals are very stressed. It's supposed to drive it up 15 points more. Remember the hormones? It's instantaneous that it puts in when you go from a laying down position to a standing up position, and it gets your blood pressure up that you don't experience that lightheadedness. So this helps us understand where that's coming from. He also goes into dietary supplements so that you can do without using medication. And there are vitamins, minerals, and herbs, and he goes into all of that. And he also shows you the role of the adrenals in stress. And this is very good. These are really good and easily to understand for us lay people on what just destroys that poor adrenal that's trying to keep and maintain health for us. So to strengthen the adrenals, you can also do dry brush. You can dry brush right directly on your skin, and that will stimulate your adrenals. You can dry brush on your arms, and that's a good treatment. You can dry brush on your thyroid. Yeah, you can do that. You can dry brush on this. Actually, it feels quite good. Your legs, all over your body. It's just a good stimulant, particularly if you're not a very active person. But even if you're an active person, dry brush massage for all these systems can be very helpful. So and feed your adrenals, the desiccated adrenal being it. Where do you get your desiccated adrenals? You have to go to a chiropractor. Turning it the wrong way, everything's backwards. You have to go to a chiropractor. If you have chiropractor that you see and keeps you straight and in line as a chiropractor, he'll have standard process and many things that you can look at to consider for strengthening your body to find health again. To strengthen your hormones, that's this book. You have to educate yourself. You've got to put yourself into studying and learning. You've got to be searching and seeking and praying and trying to understand your body. Dr. John Lee became a personal friend of mine. I called him on the phone to help myself out of my menopause issues and my wrong concepts. He taught me a great deal. I talked with him for years, and he helped me help a myriad of other women with their menopausal problems. But first you have to find out the physiology, understand what's happening in the cycle, understand what happens when you go into menopause, all of that sort of thing, and how to upgrade it. And it's bioidentical hormones is what I found to be the most effective for me to regain what my health that I needed for my hormones. The role of estrogen, progesterone is very important. Dr. John Lee won the Nobel Prize for his studies in progesterone. I have adopted his concepts, philosophies, and I've lived a healthy lifestyle since regaining my health when I went through menopause. Treatment with bioidentical hormones. You have to know your hormone levels, so you have to be familiar with blood tests and all of those things to treat that. To strengthen your thyroid, you first have to strengthen your adrenals, like we've been saying all along. Regulate your diet, the 8 laws of health. God has established that. He's created us. He knows what's going to keep us in good health and what's going to, if we're out of oil, he's going to show us how to get the oil back into the system. 3 John 1:2 says, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou may prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. James 1:5, If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to you. He's the great physician. He wants us to learn to obey his laws of health, laws of life, diet, exercise, dress, all these things, and good thoughts, good character. Finding the power in him to change our character, that we don't get depressed and we don't go down the path of self-destructive thoughts and the pit of despair or controlling others. God's able to do all that, and that aids health to all of your body. Be active and loving as Jesus. He has the wisdom to direct our steps, and he knows how to recover us. And he's ever sending messages to those who are listening for his voice. So we need to, Lord, I need help. I don't have all the answers. Help me. Feeding the adrenals. All right, let's look at the adrenals. How do we feed the adrenals? Well, massage on the adrenals is very helpful, just above the kidneys. Licorice root, golden seal, ginger, ginseng, these different herbs help. Salt is very much needed. When the adrenals are stressed, you need more salt. That's probably why you crave salt. Salt is important too, and you need to know when salt is necessary. Garlic, magnesium foods that are very good for you is kelp and almonds and cashews, nuts, sesame seeds, whole wheat, peas, beans, legumes, brewer's yeast. You can try juicing. Juicing is very effective for all of the systems because it makes the minerals so that they're not so hard to get and break down. And the digestion is made easier, which makes it easier for all of that. You need more sleep often in order to heal your adrenals. And you need exercise, but not too much. So that gives you some ideas for your thyroid and your adrenals and all of those things. Educate yourself so you can reason from cause to effects and have intelligent questions you can ask the doctor and find out the wisdom that he has that he can share with you. Manage your stress and trust in divine power. Talk with God, research. Okay, I've given you the physiology, and now I want to give you my testimony of what God did for me through all these things that I'm recommending for you to do. Okay. At age 46, I went through early menopause. Some said it was because I was vegan, vegetarian, and others, there's many other reasons that it can be as well. First, I want you to know I had wrong concepts. I had a misconception that doing nothing was what was normal in the hormone in regaining my thyroid and adrenal health. I was wrong. The consequences were that I went through 2 years of hot flashes, that I would be dripping down sweat in my back. But I was so determined that, this is normal. Menopause is normal. And for 2 years, I went through that until I listened to an elderly lady say, don't do that. I did that. And it was a terrible end. And she described to me her terrible end. And she says, treat it early. Go and deal with your hormones. It's not wrong. So when I read the book from Dr. John Lee on the menopause, and I found out that what the real issue was, you know what the real issue was with my hormones? John Lee told me the story. He was in Florida. The alligators were dying off. And as they were dying off, they had a research that went in to find out why the alligators were dying. Well, they found out that there was DDT's spill in that area, and the DDTs went into the water and the ground, and the DDTs caused problems with all the little microorganisms, and the microorganisms that fed the little bigger organisms, and the bigger organisms, and the little fish, and ultimately the alligator. And the DDTs that were the residual, it was in the effect on the follicles. Remember, that's what creates our hormones, actually crystallized them and caused sterility. So the alligators had fertility issues and they couldn't reproduce, and it caused death because of the disease that was within themselves, that they didn't have the homeostasis of their endocrine system. Ooh. Well, DDTs were in my generation when I was a child, and they would go around spraying for mosquitoes. Were you there? Are you my age? And the children would often run in while they were spraying. And those were our grandmas, our mothers, us. And the DDTs destroy the thyroid, destroy the hormones system first, which then affects secondarily the thyroid. And the thyroid ends up being a non-functioning thyroid or a very low functioning thyroid. And we accommodate with a disease, and we learn to function even under low functioning. And we consider low functioning normal. And then grandma passed her deterioration that she had down to your mother. And then your mother, if she had any additional exposure, passed down her poorer functioning thyroid to you and me. So this hormone issue is not normal. The going through menopause so early is not God's normal. Why? Because progesterone is not being produced. So you end up with estrogen dominance. So you end up with really heavy periods if you're still a cycling woman, or you end up going through menopause early. And all that creates a disease because it's dis-ease. It's not functioning properly. DDTs in the food chain have created you and I to the deterioration where we are today. So I had my misconception. I went and did some studies, met Dr. John Lee, talked with him often on the phone, learned a whole lot from him, and I went to bioidentical hormone replacement. Now, why is there such bad press on the hormones today? Because they're man-made hormones. They're not the way God made them. Premarin. Have any of you been on Premarin? Pregnant mare's urine. You get 24 hormones from the horse's hormones into you. Initially, many will respond positively being put on those hormones. But in time, because they're a man-made product, here is progesterone. Here is your estrogen. And your estrogen here is not like God made it. It has an extra compound put on it. Well, that extra compound may not show its detrimental effect initially, but in time it does. And so there's a breast cancer, all kinds of cancer created from estrogen replacement. And so hormones have a bad name, but it's because of the man-made hormones, not the bioidentical hormones. But you still need to be intelligent. If you do bioidentical hormone replacement, you have to know what is your norm, what norm do you want, what norm do you function well at. So it's a test, an experiment, and Lord, what would you have me to do? And Lord, what's this problem? Oh, I'll cut this down, I'll up this, and you'll find out where you're functioning best with God and you and intelligence. And doctors can help you too. So don't just stand alone. So I regained my hormones and balanced them out. Now I'm on a two-legged stool again. And with the two-legged stool, then I wanted to address my thyroid because I've had cold hands and feet since I was a teenager. So I added thyrotropin, and the thyrotropin, I do PRN whenever I feel I need it, and just to find a balance, and I'm talking with God. So all of these things, God wants to work with you, and he wants your estrogen to be in a good place, your progesterone. And if you feel you need testosterone and you evaluate it, fine, then go ahead and do that. But you have plenty that you can do yourself to regain your health. Diet, exercise, educate yourself, reason from cause to effect, get other input, talk with the doctors that think like you do, and then experiment with your treatment. So the sad American diet is not the way you're going to regain health. You need good food, healthy food, organic food if you can afford it. Grow your own garden. That's even better, especially in this day and age. But that's what I wanted to share with you. I regained my hormone health. The hormone health helped me regain my thyroid health. And I'm functioning. I'm 74 years old, going to be 75 this year. And I'm hiking the mountains. I'm kayaking. I'm swimming. I'm doing all those things. Not jumping out of airplanes anymore, but I did in my past. But I'm experiencing good health. I'm able to do anything I want. I don't run out of energy. I'm very productive every day. I can do anything that I want to do. And that's what I want for you. Dear Lord, may you help each listener educate themselves, learn from the Bible as well as books written by man, because the Bible has a lot of good things to teach them, that they can regain their health, they can find God, they can find power to change, they can find power to be healed. And Lord, teach us all that we do have a part we can play in our health and regain it to a great degree, that we can be the best we can be for whatever age we find ourselves. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, thank you. May you apply, and I'd like to hear some of your stories someday. God bless.